There's a bit of discussion around the 2025 NFL quarterback class, and of course, there's Shedur's situation. Also, a lot of people are questioning the Giants' Jackson Dart, and some people have concerns for Cam Ward, but most think he'll be great. Now, how about the 2024 class that featured 6 first-round quarterbacks? Today, that's who I'm going to be discussing, and the guys I believe have the most potential to thrive, and I'll crown one that I think will be the best. Now, the first thing we're going to be doing is eliminating 3 of the 6 quarterbacks, and we'll only briefly discuss these guys before we get into greater detail of the final 3. First up, I have JJ McCarthy. Of course, his potential is fairly high, and we didn't see him play last year due to injury, but the lack of seeing him play is the main reason he's down here. Not that he'll be the worst quarterback from last year, because I definitely think that he won't, but the lack of playing in his rookie year makes me think he'll be very bumpy. I think he'll start the first month off a little cold before he starts to heat up, but by the end of the season, I could see him being close to the top group of guys. Next up is Michael Penix Jr. Penix is a quarterback who has the ability to make throws all over the field, but I would really question his consistency. Of course, he wasn't bad last year, but he wasn't really great. He definitely showed flashes that were part of the reason he was drafted top 10, but I think there will be some struggles. Of course, the Falcons have a solid core around him, but nothing great. London is good, and Mooney is pretty solid, and we'll have to find out if Pitts has the ability to finally take the step that he was supposed to take about 4 years ago. The Falcons didn't have a very notable offseason due to them working on building the defense some, but I don't see a real reason Penix would climb into the top tier of quarterbacks this season, other than the fact that he's had a season in the league under his belt, unlike McCarthy has. I did say I would eliminate 3, and I still am, but I'm separating Caleb Williams into the in-between. Of course, last offseason, lots of people said Caleb Williams had one of the best situations, and we saw it quite frankly wasn't true. Of course, the offense was fairly talented, but the coaching situation was clearly a mess that was overlooked. Another thing overlooked was the quality of some of the vets they brought in, such as Keenan Allen, who showed his age a little more than people thought he would. This season, though, the coaching situation is most definitely improved, but we still have a rookie head coach. The O-line had a bit of a rebuild, and also he got new weapons in Luther Burden and Colson Loveland through the draft, but we're looking at a lot of new pieces who haven't played together yet, and that's part of the reason I think that he might not make it to the top 3 group of guys. When it comes to our top 3, I'll try to hit on a couple different categories, and that's going to be how well the roster around them improved, how familiar they are with it, and how coaching will hurt or help them, and also how well I think they'll develop just based on their play style. Now, starting off with the Bo Nix, of course, the Broncos brought in a couple new pieces like Pat Bryant, Evan Ingram, and also RJ Harvey. But they also have the exact same O-line from last year. Then at receiver, Sutton and Marvin Mims Jr. We've already seen the Broncos O-line play together, and we know they are a very solid unit. Nix already has experience throwing the ball to Sutton and Mims, meaning he won't have to build new chemistry with the top receivers. But our next QB, Drake May, is going to have to build some chemistry with his receivers. The Patriots have brought in a couple new weapons for May. Stephon Diggs was signed through free agency, and TreVeyon Henderson was brought in through the draft. Of course, Diggs at this point in his career isn't going to be an elite wide receiver 1, but he'll be an upgrade from last year where Demario Douglas was Drake May's number 1 receiver, who didn't even lead the team in receiving yards. And that actually belonged to Hunter Henry, the tight end, with only 600 something. But TreVeyon Henderson was also drafted during the second round. Henderson will most likely end up being the Patriots' RB1B, most likely sharing the workload with Ramondre Stevenson. Now, unlike Bo Nix, Drake May is going to have an O-line playing together for their first time, but this is most definitely an improvement from his last year, even if he's not familiar. The Patriots brought in Will Campbell to become May's new blindside protector with one of the top picks in the NFL draft. Cole Strange has dealt with some injury, entering a make-or-break season of his career. They've also brought in Morgan Moses to upgrade the right side of the O-line. And they still have Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper as solid options at tight end. Of course, a fairly revamped O-line will have to learn to play together, but I do think it's definitely better that they are this year than they were last year, even though they're not as familiar. Moving on to Jayden Daniels, I think he's got the best deal of new and familiar talent. He's still got a top 12 receiver in Terry McLaurin, but the Commanders also brought in Deebo Samuel, who, even if he isn't at his peak, I think he'll still be a great utility player for the offense to use. The Commanders also retained their solid running back duo in Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. They also brought in a couple new linemen. Laramie Tunsil was traded to them by the Texans for a couple of day 2 draft picks in 25 and 2026. They also drafted a new tackle, Josh Connerly Jr. at pick 29, who should be an improvement even as a rookie over Andrew Wiley from last year. Of course, they also still have Samuel Cosme, Tyler Biadasz, and Nick Algeridi, who are very solid on the interior O-line. Just like the Patriots, they are also running a similar tight end core from last year of Zach Ertz and Ben Sinnott. Now, when it comes to roster buildup, I think Jayden Daniels takes the cake. He has his top receiver back, chemistry with all of his interior line, but then the Commanders gave him a solid veteran at left tackle and a shiny new first rounder at right tackle. He's got a deadly running back duo and a solid couple tight ends. I think Bo Nix takes second place mostly due to familiarity. The Broncos already had a solid roster, but the addition of a running back who's already showing out at camp and a veteran 1,000-yard tight end when they had a bunch of third-string tight ends last year. Of course, Bo Nix is familiar with most of his O-line as well. My main reason for putting May last in this category is because he was already on the worst offense, not just of these 3 quarterbacks, but probably of all 6 of them, and also one of the worst in the leagues. And now it's definitely gotten better, at least on paper through free agency and the draft, but we haven't seen the pieces together yet. I think Diggs will be solid, but I'm still concerned about their receiving core overall, but at least their tight ends are still very solid and definitely good blanket options for Drake May to have. I think the O-line will be much improved, but the interior of it might be a little rocky, and we'll have to see how that ends up working out. Moving on to coaching, of course, Nix and Daniels have familiar staffs, but Drake May is getting a huge improvement getting Mike Vrabel as his head coach. Vrabel may not have a huge past necessarily in the development of quarterbacks, but I think having Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator is going to help a bunch with Drake May's development. Of course, McDaniels always failed as a head coach, but he's always been a tremendous offensive coordinator and was part of the reason Mac Jones was so good in his rookie season. With Jayden Daniels, he's still running it back with Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. One of the issues Kingsbury had when he was with the Cardinals is he got figured out pretty quickly. I don't think he'll have the same issue though, because he'll be able to focus more on the offense now than when he was a head coach. He's also been a much improved play caller with the Commanders than he was in Arizona, so I don't really have many concerns when it comes to the Commanders coaching staff for Jayden Daniels. With Bo Nix, he's the only one who I'd say has a head coach who is the offensive mastermind. The Broncos still have Lombardi as their OC as well, and have also retained their quarterback coach Davis Webb. There's really no concerns here either, and even if they lost one of their OCs or the quarterback's coach, I still think they would have been fine because of Sean Payton. I'm honestly going to have to go ahead and give a 3-way tie when it comes to coaching. I will say that Bo Nix might have the slight edge just because it's his head coach, and also having the whole staff still there, but at the end of the day, I think that there's just not a whole lot that you can really take away that one of these guys has a way worse coaching staff than the other. Of course, maybe Drake May is in the bottom while it's a tie between Daniels and Nix, just due to the fact that he's working with new guys. But also, I think Josh McDaniels is going to be able to elevate Drake May a whole lot this upcoming season. Bo Nix, in my opinion, is the smartest of these quarterbacks. He's a good improviser and is a very smartly athletic quarterback. Not only is his improvising good, he's the one that sees the field best and fits great in his system. In my opinion, Bo Nix's smart playstyle is what's going to help him make a giant step this upcoming season. I think his playstyle will allow him to take a step. He knows how to take a check down and kind of when. And with his new weapons in Harvey and Pat Bryant, he'll have some extra safety blankets. Also, Evan Ingram, who it feels like I've kind of forgotten to mention a couple times this video. But moving on, Nix just is not scared to take the deep shot either, like lots of people were saying before last season. The narrative's been shut down some, but he was one of the top in the league last year in downfield passes. So hopefully a lot of people will start to realize that the narrative that he can't take a deep shot just is not true. And he also hit on a bunch of his deep shots last year. Obviously, there was a miss here and there, but I still think that he'll be able to improve. Jayden Daniels is the best scrambler, and in my opinion, he's also kind of the best gambler of the three. This doesn't mean he isn't smart, but he is a home run hitter. Jayden Daniels, of course, is the best running quarterback of the three, but also has elite arm talent. Also, not only is he the best running quarterback of these three guys, he's easily got to be a top 5 quarterback in the league when it comes to his scrambling ability. And honestly is probably number 2 to Lamar. The head's blanking a little bit on who else might be above him, but I know that there's just one guy I'm probably missing. But I think his scrambling ability will be great in his development just because the extra bailout option it gives. Him being a gambler with the ball at times, sometimes it'll help and it'll lead to a great deep shot or even a good pass over the middle of the field. But other times it'll lead to a slight mistake. He was already so good that in his rookie year that I'm really not expecting him to take a huge step this year, but I think he'll take a step to becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Because of his scrambling ability, I think that he has a good chance to take that step again too. The ability gives defenders another thing to cover. Obviously, when you're playing a more pocket passer in the league or even just an older quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, the defenders aren't too worried about the scrambling ability, but because of Daniel's scrambling ability, it's going to open up the passing game as well, and at times he'll still have his running lanes. It's also always a great extra bailout option when a play gets messy. Drake May is the most room for improvement of the 3 this year. Of course, handicapped by coaching last year, but now with Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel, I expect him to become a more consistent quarterback, and I think he'll take a decent step. I think he'll probably end up one of the most sacked of the 3 due to his O-line and being the worst improviser of the 3. Also, at times it feels like he doesn't know the best option when a play dies, and he may take a sack instead of getting rid of the ball smartly. But I'm confident in Josh McDaniels' ability to coach it out of him. If I'm being honest, May feels like the biggest wild card of our top 3. I feel like he may either take a good leap or kind of sputter. For the boomer bust reason, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and take him out of consideration for the top spot. So Bo Nix or Jayden Daniels, who will be the best this season? I do believe it will be Bo Nix. Although not the scrambler Jayden Daniels is, he still has the ability to bail his team out with his legs. He also has some new security blankets in Evan Ingram and Harvey. Although Daniels does have a slightly better offense overall, I think the continuity Bo Nix has with his guys will help. And when it comes to coaching, I think Nix also has a slight edge. Although Kingsbury is a good offensive coordinator, I think Sean Payton is better.